Today we've got confirmation, and I've put my sermon title is Amazing Grace, because when we look back on our lives and think how far we've come, my own experience that I came from a non-church background until I was 21 years old, and then I made my Christian commitment at Central Hall, Westminster, and that particular day, I usually went down to London. I was a student in London and used to go to the cheap record shops in Carnaby Street. They had lots of Portuguese imports of LPs. I'm sure they were all legal. But that particular day, my friend Hugh couldn't make it. So I found out about this concert by a Christian band, New Beginnings, and I went into to Central Westminster. I don't know if you know, it's a massive, cathedral church. And somebody said, "Have you come in for the service or concert?" And I said, "Yes." "Does it cost?" I said, "Does it cost anything?" Because I thought you had to pay to go into church. You have to pay to get out of church, but so he said it's free. And one day I'll maybe tell you my whole sort of testimony, but when I look back and I think of all the things that have happened, you think of the amazing grace of God, and I think many of us would testify to that today. We could have probably person after person coming up and saying, "Yeah, life's been difficult. There's been some real challenges, and I felt out of my depth, but God's grace has been amazing, personally, in working through church communities and prayer." And today, confirmation is one of those points on the journey when we say this faith that maybe we've grown up with really means something to me. It's not just a Sunday faith, but impacts every week, our work, our school, our relationships with our friends and neighbours and our family. And there are times of awareness when God sort of impacts our lives in a deeper way. And for that, we might give thanks to God for it, don't we? Can't always be on the mountaintop, but sometimes you have to experience the mountaintop as well as the deep valleys as we go through life. So it is amazing grace. Next slide, please. It's about confirming change. And I remember a couple of weeks ago I was reading a commentary on the Bible, and it said that, in a sense, faith is, or you talk about Jesus particularly, is about creating moments of crisis. I thought it was quite a strong phrase, but there are times when maybe there's a crisis moment in our lives, a sort of crossroads, a challenge, and this is the same for those fishermen. It was, in a sense, a crisis moment. They'd been out fishing. They were pretty rubbish at fishing, weren't they? Not that I've ever tried myself. And if you know the lake, Galilee or Gennesaret, subject to winds, and they went out fishing in the night. Still very dangerous role. But it was their crisis moment. And sometimes in those moments when we feel profoundly challenged, that's when God speaks to us most profoundly. It's about changing attitudes. Mother Teresa in 1974 said, I see God in every human being. When I wash the leper's wounds, I feel I am nursing the Lord himself." And I suppose there are times when you think, I don't want to touch the untouchables, but when you were Mother Teresa and the nuns who worked with her in the slums, and you suddenly see in another person, you see God in that person. God has created that person. And David Adam of Holy Island said, our task really as Christians is to identify God's image in every single human being, whether they admit to faith or not, but to see that they're holy and made in the image of God. And so it's about changing attitudes. Mother Teresa, I'm sure, had many changes of attitudes. Jesus confronts the defeatist attitudes, put out into deep water and let the nets down. And sometimes it's the deep waters of faith, isn't it? That God sometimes says, you've come so far. There's still more to go. There's still more to be explored in this awesome journey of faith. Try again. Never give up. And I need to hear that myself every so often as well. So it's about changing attitudes, changing priorities. And it said they were going to catch people, the mission, the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so today the first point is confirming change. Try again. Never, ever give up. Second point, amazing grace. They left everything and followed him. And I wonder how we actually acknowledge commitment. So it might be a certificate, get a GCSE. I don't know if they still do them, don't they? Degrees, promotion at work. My wife was given, she went to NHS, they recognise NHS workers. She's worked 42 years for the NHS since the age of, I think, 18 or 20 when she qualified. It could be an OBE, recognising achievement, amazing grace, confirmed commitment, recognising achievement. And when I started preaching, I was put with retired Lieutenant Colonel Sear of the Parachute Regiment to start to train as a local preacher. He's about 5'5" and a former army boxing champion. Okay, so would I have a disagreement with him? He was served in the toughest regiment and was as tough as anything, but he became a Christian in the army. And when he left, he headed up SASRA, which is an evangelistic and sort of caring organisation for the armed forces. And we grew very close. And I once preached, I did a really bad service. And after he was there, and he said afterwards, he says, I'm not going to say anything, you know what went wrong. And he might have been a tough person, but his heart was tender, and it was Christ-filled. So it's a willingness to change direction. That's what confirmation is about, leaving their jobs. Not everybody's called to do that, but it's about saying, I'm willing to let go of the things that are familiar and to follow Christ. Remember when I was in Saffron Walden, and we have Margaret Adicott had been a missionary for about 30 years in India for the Methodist Church. And then at the age of 60, she felt God was calling her to stay there for another 6 years to set up a clinic for AIDS victims in rural India. That's crazy, isn't it? But she did it. And she set up that clinic, probably one of the first ones in India. And it's a willingness to allow God to change the direction of your life and destiny. And you don't retire as a Christian, do you? You just do different things in serving God. Doug Gray, a URC minister in East London, said that the church is the best place to be a nonconformist. So if you want to be different, radical, committed, Spirit-filled, church is the best place to be. Amen? Amen. They'd say in London, amen. 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 We're working on it, aren't we, in Kempston East? And final point. Amazing grace confirmed by encounter. So we've done lots of interesting things in our course, which Raj is going to say just a few things about a bit later on at the confirmation. But we covered lots of different subjects, history of the Methodist Church and things like this. And that hymn, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found, but was blind, and now I see. And we know, written by John Newton, a slave owner, a slave trader. His cargo was human misery. And I've stood on in Cape Coast, there's a fort in Ghana, and there's a gate called the Gate of No Return. And it's called that because once a slave goes through that gate, that's the last time they will see their country. And it was a wretched existence. And he got converted. Encounter. And Christianity is first and foremost about relationship. We've got our hymns, we've got our words, our Bible readings. All of that is really important. And as John Wesley, there's a picture we showed during our confirmation course. It was a crisis moment. Crisis moment. Then he realized he had that relationship that was real. It's both head and heart connected. And his whole life was changed. So it's to know Christ personally. That is enough for life's journey. And the fishermen are saying yes to Jesus. It was to turn their, in a sense, upside down world the right way up. Because our lives are always the wrong way up unless we follow Christ. And there's that great commission Jesus gave to his disciples and says, surely I'm always with you to the very end of the age. And so in that relationship with Christ, we have a companion for life with all its trials and all its opportunities. It is amazing grace. We are going to confirm. We're going to welcome people by transfer into the church family at Kempston East. It's about changing attitudes and priorities. It's about a call to commitment, but above all, an encounter with Christ.